I'm Stephen High. To tell a story is to take arms against the threat of time, to resist time or to harness it. Alessandro Fratelli wrote these words as part of a wider reflection on the place of story and storytelling in our lives. We exchange stories all the time, stories of origin or departure, childhood stories, coming out stories, war stories, stories of survival or struggle. Telling stories is one way to become visible, either as an individual or as a group. It is also a way to build community or to advocate for political and social change. Yet personal testimony also functions as an authenticating device for outside activists, educators, artists, and researchers who can appropriate the experiences of others. Historically, scientific research is deeply implicated in the worst excesses of colonialism. As Linda Smith cautions, the word itself, research, is probably one of the dirtiest words in the Indigenous vocabulary. Recontextualizing local knowledge is not and never has been a neutral activity. The circulation and retelling of these stories by outsiders is therefore fraught, and the risk of appropriation or commodification is very real. As you can tell, as an oral historian, I work primarily with the stories of others. This evening, however, I thought I'd begin with a short reflection on my own story. I grew up in Thunder Bay, Ontario, an isolated resource town on the north shore of Lake Superior. As a northerner, I had a strong sense of being on the political and geographic periphery. Growing up next to the railway yard where my father worked, one of my earliest memories is being led with other children into the front room of a neighbor who then rolled up his pant leg to reveal the jagged stump where his leg used to be. He had tried to cut through the rail yard one day and had been dragged by a passing train. A lesson learned. In elementary school, my classmates and I visited a working mine, a working grain elevator, and a working paper mill. We visited the woods operations to see how trees were harvested. We even learned how to make paper. Then one day in high school, my economics teacher dramatically flung open the classroom window to let the mill's rotten egg smell into the room. "Smell that?" he said. "That's the smell of money. That smell puts food on the table." Another lesson learned. Much of this industrial world has unraveled since my childhood, not only in Thunder Bay, but across North America and Europe. Deindustrialization has marked a crucial rupture in the lives of tens of millions of working families, including my own. The scale and scope of this unprecedented economic and social crisis was such that trade unions staggered from one tragedy to the next. Entire unions passed out of existence, part of a wider cultural and political defeat of working people. In a post-industrial era, industrial workers are assigned to the past, not to the present, even though a sizable percentage of the workforce remains employed in traditional blue-collar occupations. What accounts for their invisibility? Historian Jackie Clark suggests that new forms of working-class invisibility have emerged since the 1980s. She uses the term invisibility to signal not total disappearance, but various forms of marginalization and disqualification. What is rendered visible or invisible, audible or inaudible in our post-industrial and postmodern moment is thus highly significant. In recent years, photographers, artists, and others have flooded into deindustrialized cities like Detroit to explore and record industrial ruins, prompting a public backlash against so-called ruin porn and the hipster commodification of misery. Ruins and ruination have long held the imagination of the middle and upper classes. Valued for their mystery and sense of time passing, ruins were incorporated into 18th century English gardens and became sites of excursion and pilgrimage. Little has changed. Post-colonial scholar Anne-Laura Staller has called on us to go beyond the melancholic gaze to embrace a more critical vantage point with respect to ruination, asking how people live with and in ruins redirects the engagement elsewhere. One does not have to walk very far from where we are, right here, right now, to see this transformation in Griffintown or along the Lachine Canal. Almost all the mills and factories there have been demolished or converted to high-end condos. These sweeping changes have come at a devastating human price for the neighborhoods of Little Burgundy, St. Henri, Point St. Charles, and so on. One giant factory after another has closed. Dominion Textile, 1966. Northern Electric, 1974. Red Pass Sugar, 1976. Stelco, 1985, and so on. As a result, Montreal's Sud-West lost almost 1/2 of its population between 1961 and 1991, 30 years. And now it's gentrifying. As an oral historian, I've been recording the life stories of people who worked or lived alongside the canal. I'm constantly reminded that ordinary people live extraordinary lives. History exists in each of us. We then work with these life stories to produce memory-based audio walks that allow us to walk through these areas and perhaps see these changes with new eyes. We see what is and we hear what was, and it's no longer the same thing. There's tremendous political possibility when we allow past and present to rub up against each other in this way. We also hear from people who are differently located. Oral history is at its best when it challenges us to consider multiple points of view. Listening to the city reveals the diverse ways in which the sediment of history is deposited over time, reminding us once again that urban change is socially complicated, historically deep, geographically diverse, and politically perplexing. Thank you.